What is up, everybody? This is Dan the Trading Man, just going over some analysis before we start this week. And there's actually a lot to go over. That's why I wanted to make this video before we went live in the trade room tomorrow. Um, there's just so much that has happened in the last few days of trading, and it's important to cover all the sequences that we've seen and what we can pull into next. So basically, you can see these arrows here. These mark are significant highs and really where some sequences have evolved from. And so before we had this high to high, and you can see how we traded this 50%, the white levels that 50%, blue levels 38.2. They both have a reaction, right? Blue gets a nice reaction here. The white 50% gets a great reaction. And we do retest at 38.2, and then we just take off to our target at 33.72 quarter. Okay, so this sequence, this high to high sequence, traded, went through its target, did not quite get to the second target. The second target is right here, this lighter line, and you can see we got kind of shy of that and had a really harsh pullback. Now what has happened is we've gone from this high to our next high, and you can see this isn't really a surprise because we actually traded this before. This traded the 38.2 to its target. We even had another sequence trade here, the 38.2, that blue line again to its target. And then, even another time is when we've had this 38.2 and 50% react to its target. So this sequence has really traded a lot. And that shows how aggressive the markets have been. You saw how many extensions there were, right? There were a few just in this month of August alone. In August alone, there were a few extensions. Look at what was happening back in March through June, and then just recently. This lasted months, right? So to have 3 extensions like that in 1 month is really aggressive. Now, going off of what we were just talking about, we pulled into this next high to high. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this prior high to high for the moment. You can see we have an arrow here marking this sequence. And we've traded that red level. That red level is a 61.8. We pierced that. Now we haven't fully broken it. How have we not fully broken it? Well, we don't have any candlesticks getting closes beneath this red level, the 61.8, the 33.67. There's no candles closing below and ripping below this level. So as of now, this is still holding. Now, if we go to an hourly chart, we'll be able to see what's happening here. There is a low-to-low sequence coming out of these lows here that has held a couple times. And what this is coming from is a prior low-to-low that had traded on Thursday. We had a great reaction, as you see, to the downside. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, this next low-to-low is what we're paying attention to because we traded this 38% close to the 50, but not quite. That went through its targets and also it pierced that 61.8, right? Now it didn't actually continue to the downside, it pulled right back up. So then when we reopened, we ended up trading these levels here. Actually, before the close on Friday, we traded that 50%, had a reaction to the downside. Now, as of now, we are still inside of this short setup, right? If we break above 34.73.75, then that's going to be a good sign that the longs can get a chance to come out of these support levels. Until then, these shorts are still valid. They're still above us. And 34.49.50 could still be resistance if we trade that tomorrow or whenever that happens. But again, if we break above 34.73.75, we're going to have a sequence, possibly a low to high, out of these lows. And yes, there is the possibility of this large 50% short trading. 50% is that white level, that 34.67 quarter. So we could see this 50% also come into play. Okay, and if that 50% comes into play, well, there could definitely be some shorts that are going to want to short at that level and take us down to about 32.91. Now pay attention though, because again, 34.95.75 breaks that setup and we are technically on support. So this will either be the next leg higher, right? We're going to start from here and move up to the upside, or we're going to face resistance and then we're just going to break this long setup below 33.67 and we'll fall to these targets. And so really all we got to do is just be patient, and eventually we're going to either break above our shorts or we're going to break below our longs. And if we break above our shorts, we're going to have long setups. If we break below our long, we're going to have short setups. So we just got to be patient and wait for the right setup here, and it'll be good to go. Now the Nasdaq isn't too different. However, it did complete a target. So there is a very large high-to-high extension that traded the 38.2 here. Did not dip into the 50. That shows how aggressive this move was. It traded the 38.2 when we had the pandemic basically come out, and we have just rallied off of this level. I mean, you're talking about nearly doubling this 38.2 entry, right, in a matter of months, which is just insane. And you can see I already have a few arrows here. That's how aggressive the Nasdaq has been. If we go to the 4-hour chart again, you can see that we've come off of this 38.2 that we just mentioned, and there's been numerous high-to-highs, right? We had a high-to-high that was here. We had a high-to-high that traded to this point, had a high-to-high that traded this 38.2 up here. There were plenty of high-to-highs that ended up trading, right? But the important level that we just pulled into is the high-to-high of that major extension that completed its target. Okay, so if we go over this setup here, we're drawing from the highs of 07, 08 to our highs of 2020, and that's what we pulled into, that 38.2. You can see how we completed our target. So technically, the next sequence, the next move we're going to look for is that high to its high, right? We'll make sure we got the right levels here. I'll double check this. So that would be this high right here, drawn to this high right here, and that is pretty much what we got drawn. So these two levels, 11,433 and 11,114 those are massive support levels in the Nasdaq, and it's really important to pay attention to those. So if we go back to this 4-hour chart and talk about this, what we're trading on the opposite end are shorts just like the S&P. And these shorts, just like the S&P, are extensions. They are aggressive sequences to the downside. Now, if we look at this sequence, it originates from this low, and we traded this 38.2 down to our targets. That was on Thursday. Friday, we traded a 38.2 down through our targets. And again, we are pulling into major support here, right? This is major support. And we trade the 38 and we trade the 50. And now on Monday, this holiday, right, we just consolidated on the 38.2. That 38.2 is support. The 433 is support. Okay, that blue level, the 38.2, that is support. And you can see how we're just consolidating on that level and we're starting to react higher. Now this 529 quarter could be resistance. Okay, the 529 quarter could be resistance. It's a 50% short, that high to low white level. But breaking above 581.75 could be a good sign for longs. And then more importantly, getting above this 779, right? That would be really good for the longs to come back into play. That would take out this short setup. And again, just like the S&P, you're going to have the potential for this 50% short, this white level, this 50% short to come into play at 11,800.350. And there could be significant shorts there. We'll just have to see what happens, right? But if we break above 960, then the longs are in really good shape. And again, just like with the S&P, if we can break above our longs, then we're going to have, if we break above our shorts, we're going to have longs. Okay, and if we break below our longs, we're going to have shorts. So breaking above these 61.8s, these red levels here, the 779, the 960, breaking above those is going to give us more long setups. And if we end up taking out the 795, then we're going to have more short setups. You can see these targets on these short setups aim for that 61.8. So again, just being patient, wait for your setups. We're either going to break above our shorts and we'll have longs, and these targets are way above us here, 13,103, or we're going to break lower and then we'll have some more shorts. And one thing I do want to talk about at this point is also Apple. Apple pulled into a very similar setup, had a great reaction on Friday. And if we look at what's happening here, Apple also had essentially from 08, 07, 08, those highs like we did in the Nasdaq, it also had a high to high here that traded off the 38.2. That 53.42 level was support. Great reaction through two targets. and then we just pulled into the next high to high. And so this was a great place, in my opinion, to add some stocks, shares. And then if you want to, you could have added options as well, some calls. Um, but you can see it, 109 or 110 was that support. We don't quite get there, but we do trade that zone between the 38.2 and the 50, and a great reaction. Time will tell if this holds or not. If we break below 103, there will be more shorts and we'll find support beneath us at some point. But if we end up moving higher here, then 151.20 is just the first target in this sequence that can definitely produce much higher results here in Apple. So let's take a look at the Dow then. Dow is next on our list. And the Dow Jones is interesting because this one hasn't really been the most technically clean overall this year. And it's also been taking the longest to get back on its feet compared to the Nasdaq and the S&P. It's still incredible, the growth that we've had since the pandemic, but not as incredible as the Nasdaq and the S&P 500. So looking at this sequence here, we do have a high to high that pierced at 61.8, that 24,485 level got pierced. We held it, and then we ended up going and completing this target at 28,823. So what you would do is draw your high to high up, and you can see how we have basically broken this extension, right? I mean, we have closes underneath the 61.8. It looks pretty ugly. So I'm actually going to delete this draw. And until we make a new high, until we go above these prior highs, this high to high will most likely not be the trade. Okay, when we make a new higher high, that's when I'll go back to this sequence and measure from this high. But until then, we are going to have this high to high basically be holding for support. That target is going to give us a 29,775. And there are some shorts on top of us. This high to low 50% short is a 28,412. Breaking above 28,593 is really going to be the key here to seeing more longs trade toward that upper side target. And again, if this short holds, well, we're going to break this long setup and we'll just continue lower here in the Dow Jones. We'll just have to see what happens. Again, just about being patient, following your levels, and we'll see which side wins. And just don't fight the trend. Trade with the trend. That'll be simpler for your trading. Now the VIX here is really interesting. The VIX here pulled into a 50% long after having this massive rally. And now we're either going to be holding this $29 area and we'll continue higher, which by the way, targets are 41.11, which is just crazy. Otherwise, we will break the 61.8. We'll break this long setup at 27.50. And when we do that, we'll just have a short setup out of these highs. And we'll probably continue lower. And for the most part, when the VIX goes higher, the indices go lower. When the VIX goes lower, the indices go higher. They are an inverse relationship. However, the past couple weeks, there have been some instances where when the indices rise, so did the VIX. When the VIX was falling, so were the indices. That was a sign that institutional investors were back and they were hedging their positions basically. So seeing how that panned out, we now see that the VIX really went higher in price here Thursday and Friday, and well, before the end of the day on Friday. And the indices were really falling off the shelf there on Thursday and then partially on Friday. So seeing that play out was really interesting. And now that they're back to being inversely related, we'll see if this long setup holds here in the VIX. And notice how the VIX is on a long setup. It's on a 50% long. And the indices are trading their shorts, but they are also on support. So we'll have to see what the VIX does. If the VIX breaks below 27.45, that's 61.8, that red level, if the VIX breaks below that, we're probably going to see the indices break above their shorts. And if the VIX rises, then we'll probably see the indices break below their longs, and the more shorts will come into play in the indices. So keep an eye on that. Now, oil has traded this extension back in June and still hasn't completed this target at 48.83. This high is a 43.78. It was about 5 ticks away from hitting that target. Didn't do it though. All we did was pull into our low to high at 39.07 it appears. We'll make sure that draw is correct. So 39.07 looks about right. And so if we zoom in on this, basically for longs to hold, 39.07 should give us some support here. And we'll see if we end up trading this 50% short. And kind of with the indices, we are on support. If we can break above this 41.78, then we'll just see more longs come out of this. And if we break below 37.96, well, then we'll see more shorts come out of this. And if we break below this long setup at 39.07, that 61.8 is a 37.96. If we break below that, we can definitely come down and trade a retest at 35 and 33 that we have not traded yet. The 35 we did, the 33.26 we did not. So, but if we break this long setup, we can definitely trade down lower into these levels. And now we'll talk about the metals here for a little bit. Gold and silver have been on massive support and they have just been consolidating. So we'll see if we can finally get a breakout going. But we've just been slowly accumulating down here on this support zone. You can see the 50 and the 38.2, the 1898 and the 1942. Those have just been, we're just bouncing around there, and we'll see if we can get up into 2180. That's the main target of this extension, that high to high, 2180. And silver isn't too different. They're also in a major extension. And we traded a low to high 50% at 26.41. And we'll see if we can move up to make a new high. That targets a 30.56 for the 50% long. The extension, that 50 from 24.43, that target is a 32.50. We'll see if this can get going and if we get to these upper side targets. But otherwise, that's all I got for today. I will be live in the trade room tomorrow starting at 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time. If you would like to join our trade room, click the link in the description and you'll get a 1-month free trial to see if this is going to help you in any way. Otherwise, I'll see the rest of you tomorrow morning. Take care.